Going live. And I think we are now live.
Okay, sounds great. And the captions did not capture what you said. So am I host or co-host, just for future reference?
You're co-host. So I think, are you in PowerPoint or in Google Slides?
Google Slides.
So I'm pretty sure it's only going to caption sound that's coming through your microphone and not anyone else's.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we will go ahead and get started. And hello and welcome to eLearning's Tech Talks. My name is Vanessa Botts, and I am an instructional designer with eLearning. And joining us today are Ben and Caleb, also instructional designers with eLearning. And today's topic is icons for meaning and context. And in this tech talk, which will last between 10 and 15 minutes, we are going to explore how to use eLearning's education icons to increase the readability and usability of your Canvas course pages and text, and also show you how to use them and where to find these icons so you can incorporate them into your course. They were created by eLearning, so you are free to use them and share them as needed. So notice these three icons on the screen, and I know they're a little bit blurry and we're working on that, but once you put them into your Canvas course, they will not be so blurry. But at any rate, notice the fact here on this page that there is no text. And even without the text, if you could just please take a moment to think about these icons and think of them if you were to see them or your students were to see them on an assignment page. What do you think students will be asked to do based on the icons alone? And if you guessed that the students will be asked to read something, to discuss something, and write something, you would be correct. So, as you might imagine, then, by adding icons to the text, we can better guide students along the tasks we are asking them to perform. And shortly, I will share with you where you can find the icons like the ones you can see here on the screen. So, again, you can use them into your course. So, now let me show you two examples. First, I'm going to show you an example of some student instructions in an assignment with some tasks that they have to do within a module. And these are going to be text only. And then I'm going to show you the same thing without text. Well, with text, but with icons rather. So just if you could take a moment and just kind of go over these, you don't have to really read the whole thing, but just kind of get a feel for what the student is being asked to do. Okay. And even if you haven't finished quite yet, that's okay. It's just, this is just kind of to show you a sample of the difference with icons and without icons. So now let me show you the same page. It's the same, absolutely the same text, however, now with icons. So hopefully you will agree that we're conveying the same information, but in two ways. We've got the text as a guide, which is important because they need to know what they're doing. The icons alone are not going to convey what it is they need to do. But they do guide the students immediately. It draws the eye and it helps them figure out where they are and what is expected of them. So that's just a little example of what a difference a few icons can make. And before I show you how to get these icons and how to put them into your course, I do want to talk a little bit about universal design for learning. So I just wanted to mention that again, icons are a simple yet effective action we can take to help our students succeed within our online course or any kind of web enhanced course. And they happen to be a part of what's called Universal Design for Learning, or UDL, and it is an educational framework. And what it does is it guides the design of learning experiences to proactively meet the needs of all learners. So when using UDL, what we're doing is we're assuming that the barriers to learning are in the design of the environment, not necessarily the student. And as you can see on the image right here, it's an airport sign. We don't know what country it's in. We can see UDL in action, Universal Design for Learning in action, and hopefully realize that UDL really does help us all, not just our students. So it is a valid and useful framework from which we can try to base our course design. And again, icons being one of those ways. So let me just briefly show you kind of the step by step, and I will go a little bit fast, but don't worry because we do have a Canvas course, Tech Talks, where you can get this tutorial, which you can download and use as needed. And I'll show you that, or I'll share that link with you shortly. So here would be the link that you would access those. And the link, which happens to be a OneDrive link, that's where you can locate those icons. So you're going to click, once you click on that link, you're going to click on the little 3 dots that are right here. And then from the drop-down menu, you're going to choose download. If you want to see what the icons look like, you can do preview, or it is possible that, with your settings, that you might be able to see a little preview here. And then you'll be prompted to find a location for the file, as you might imagine. So you're going to click on browse and choose where on your computer you want to get those icons. So now you're going to see the file, which you can click on to access. And again, you're going to do the little 3 dots and you're going to figure out what it is that you want to do with it. So these are the icon images that you will upload to Canvas as needed. This is what is currently available, but Caleb, our instructional designer, one of our team, is creating some more very useful icons that you will soon have access to, and maybe later on he can share a little bit on what he's working on if he's able to. So at any rate, in Canvas, you're going to create your new or choose an existing content area. It could be an assignment, it could be a page, it could be a discussion, anything that has an editor text box. So as you normally do, you're going to click on edit once you access that content area, whatever that might be. And this is an optional step. I think it helps to better organize and keep the spacing of the icons and the text a little bit less wonky. And that is to create a table where to house the icons on one column and the text on another column. So what you would do is, from your text editor box, you're going to click on table and create a table with as many rows and columns as you need. I would say start with a 2x2, and you can always add additional rows or columns, or just by simply clicking tab on the last row, that should prompt another row to pop up. So if you are using the table and you do not want the lines, the borders, what you're going to do is you're going to click on Table Properties. And from the choices you are going to be given, you are going to simply put a 0 here on the border. You see it right here popped up on the screen, and then click OK. Now, when ready to upload the icon images, you are going to click on Images right up here on the upper right of that content area screen, and you're going to choose Upload New Image. Then that's going to give you some choices of where you're going to get that image that you want to upload. And then once the images are uploaded, you're going to return to the table. You're going to place your cursor in the table, row, or column, or whatever it is that you want to place that image. You're going to click on that image that you want to insert. And then also notice that you can resize the width of the table columns by clicking your mouse, and it takes a little bit of practice, and there are other ways to do it, but just put your cursor right there and kind of hold your mouse down and then kind of drag and drop where you want that line to be. And now I've already created a table, and this is the same thing that you saw earlier. As you can see, this is column 1. I made it quite thin, but still left a little bit of white space in between. And each of these represent a table row. So now let me show you kind of what the OneDrive looks like. And again, I will pop that link into the chat here shortly. But this is the OneDrive folder, and it will take you straight to here where you can find all those icons that we currently have available and the new ones that Caleb is working on. So this concludes my portion of the Tech Talks on icons for meaning and context. I will populate those links for you in just a moment. And I don't know if Caleb has a few moments to share with us.
Yeah, so those icons that you were using there, Vanessa, those were created quite a while ago by a previous instructional designer. And I think that one of the nice things I like about that style, the little blue circle with the white icon in it, is it's really easy for me to make new icons for other things. So for example, here, there's not currently one for audio or an audio recording. So I've made one. So it's really easy to expand this library of icons to include new activities, new content formats, really anything we want to do with it. And even if an instructor has an idea of an icon that they would like to have included, they can just get a hold of me, and it's not hard to make new ones and add it to that growing library. Ben, it looks like you were chatting with Ursula, and I don't think our YouTube audience can see the chat. So her question was, if you make a table like that, is it automatically accessible? Is it automatically ADA compliant? And Ben, you were answering her on that.
Yeah, I mentioned, those tables aren't the best form for students that are using a screen reader, because if they have to navigate between the different columns, and so by adding a column header, you'll be able to make that a little more accessible for students using the screen reader to navigate, so they don't get lost trying to identify the order of activities that you're asking of your students.
And thank you. And do the little icons have alternative text already?
I don't think the ones that Vanessa has on here do yet, but the new batch will automatically have the alt text tags built into them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so those aren't quite ready for prime time yet, but we'll get them ready to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to package them together in Canvas Commons, which I don't know. Ben, have we talked about Canvas Commons much in previous e-learning topics, or is that something that maybe we want to talk about again in the future?
Yeah, we could bring that up. I think our power users know it, but maybe not new folks coming on, for sure.
Okay, that's good to know. That might be a topic for another Tech Talks in the future.
Yeah, I wanted to make one point with this. Really, Vanessa's done a good job of putting those icons together to help people really clean up the pages, and so they make it a little easier for students to navigate. If you're not quite ready to get into icons, if that's like maybe a step too far for you, I think heading titles in Canvas would be a good way to start. In Canvas, you can use the heading styles to break up your content, and that's just basically changing the size of the font, but it's doing it in a much cleaner style, or a cleaner way, so that students with screen readers, they can navigate between the different heading structures, but then really it breaks up your chunks into smaller pieces so that students can navigate as well.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen definitely non-best practice instruction sheets where it's just a big, long, unformatted list of text. And I mean, that's hard for anybody to kind of break out and mentally parse that out. So there's a bunch of different techniques for organizing that information a little more visually. Headers are a great way to do it. Icons are a great way to do it. Even just making careful use of bold and italics where it makes sense can be helpful, especially when you're talking about like action verbs. If you want your students to do something, you want them to read this and watch this and write this, sometimes it helps to kind of have a standard vocabulary that you're using for those verbs that you want them to do. And I think the consistency is an important part of it. Once you have a style that you are comfortable with, I think that it's important to keep using that style in your class as much as possible.
I agree, but I've also seen that go completely off the rails with, huge size fonts in the middle of a sentence and background colors and font colors. And then it becomes this art, this kind of art piece.
That's true.
Instructions, and that's a disaster. So
that's true. I have seen it go way too far in the wrong end of the spectrum there. Because I think it was in one of Angela's sessions where she gave an example of, I think, a syllabus that looked like that, where it was every bold and underlined and italic and bright red and bright yellow, and she was like, what do you think happened here? And her answer to that question was, every single color was a different bad experience that instructor had had. Because when you had one bad experience where the student missed something important, then the instructor's response was, let's highlight that in bright red. And then you had another student who had an excuse, and you're like, oh no, that was covered in the syllabus, so we're gonna make that bright yellow. So sometimes when you see overly formatted instructions, that kind of tells a little bit of a story about what happened here, who hurt you in the past.
So keep it simple, right?
Yeah.
Don't let your Canvas pages or your syllabi reflect your trauma as an instructor. And rely on the icons to clean up your pages. I think that's a good way of approaching this.
Yeah. I think that's a good lesson.
Sounds great. Well, are there any other questions or comments or concerns?
Yeah, like the idea of this format is to keep the content quick and simple and easy to digest so that we're done in 15 or 20 minutes. But that doesn't mean we need to be finished in 15 or 20 minutes if we have questions or a conversation going on too. I'm totally cool with that.
And for those of us who do want to step away for whatever reason, we are going to officially conclude this, although we will stick around, and I hope that you will join us next week for more on cleaning up your course Tech Talks with eLearning, on using tabs to organize and kind of tidy up your course content within each module. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we hope to see you next week as well. And the link that I shared in the chat, you can access the slides from this presentation with clickable links that will take you to the resources, as well as a link to the icons that we have talked about. And stay tuned for those awesome new icons that Caleb is preparing for us.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vanessa. That was great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sorry, I actually am in 2 Zoom meetings, so I had to mute the other. Groups in Canvas just never cease to frustrate me. Are they ever going to redesign groups? Because it creates so much more work for me, essentially because I've lost all the settings that I control in my own course because they're in groups outside of my course. So I just had a group, creating new discussions that I had no idea about, and not in a discussion where they're going to be graded. I mean, that kind of stuff goes on all the time. And I'm I'm ready to get rid of all my group projects. It's that bad.
Oh, I think we just lost Ben. I was hoping he would chime in on that one because he's got more experience with groups than I do and probably than Vanessa does. That is a great question and a very common frustration. I don't know that I have a right answer for you on this yet. I don't know if Canvas is going to be doing any kind of redesign or revamping of the groups tool. But what you're talking about when students, they have their own conversations in the group, because when you set up a group, it gives you the option to also set up a group discussion board and I think a few other group tools that are only visible to the students in that group. And like you noticed, they're not connected to the gradebook. They're not visible to other students. And I think in some cases that tool can be helpful just as a collaboration space if the student wants to use it to share notes or talk about their project or assign duties or something like that. But yeah, if you want it to be something that is graded, you can't really do it in that space, right? Because they only.
Well, you can. I mean, I have, like, I try and set up I'm trying to make my life easier, set up my groups and make them for the first week of the group project be in a discussion that I've set up to be graded.
Yeah.
And I can do that. But then what just happened to me was, for reasons unknown to me, this group, rather than being in their group discussion that I'd set up that said, this is the discussion where you're graded, don't create your own discussions, ignored all of that, created their own discussion. And I, of course, had no idea until I sent out a warning out of the gradebook. I said, we're coming to the end of this first week and your group hasn't done anything.
And then of course, no, we've been busy. It's all in here.
No, we've been doing things. And I look in there and I say, what about don't create your own discussions is not self-explanatory.
I think I see what's happening. I think that might be a setting where you do not allow them access to create their own threads. That might be a matter of
I turned off the threads. It's outside of my shell. It's so frustrating, Vanessa.
Oh, so you know what? We're going to ask Jerry, because he's the Canvas guru, really.
Yeah, that
and
might be
find out.
We might need to investigate that a little bit, Susan.
I've talked to Canvas. It's like I can check, don't create your own threads, but that doesn't mean, because it's outside of my shell, that they can't post in their own discussion. Yeah, I've gone through this for years. I mean, I'm old. 10 years ago, Angel did groups better than Canvas does them now. That's how bad it is. 10 years.
Interesting.
Okay, which would you like us to take maybe a look at the course and see if there's a workaround, and then we'll ask Jerry as well and try to have an option for you if there is one?
You can try. I mean, I do groups in it's easier to say I do groups in all my courses except History 105 and History 106.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little bit of digging around and see.
But
I don't know that there's a good answer to the problem or not, but we can definitely look into it a little bit.
Because I've talked to Canvas over the years, and I've said to their, whatever they call their level 2 text, I said, this is the equivalent of, I'm in a classroom, I tell students, okay, you've got time to work in your groups, and they all leave the classroom. And they go wherever the heck they want. It's like, no. They can create their own groups outside of my shell. I mean, I think that's a good facility, but it's like when I set up the groups in my class.
Spend all that time, yes.
Interesting.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we'll have to research and look at a little bit.
And I'm sorry to be a whiner today, but I have to ask, has their support deprecated?
Like in terms of how responsive they are, or what?
Yeah.
I don't think so, because I think we pay them a significant amount of money to have 24/7 support.
Well, because I've always had, the level 1 people that I've chatted with or to actually talked to have always been really good. And then they, it's always something that they can't solve, and then they send it up, and then I get, responses. And this quarter, it's been terrible. I mean, I was in a chat, okay, maybe it was Saturday, because course analytics don't work. And I went through this with Jerry, and Jerry finally said, "Oh, that's a significant issue. You need to do a ticket." So that's what I did. And the person said, "Oh," at first they dismissed what I was saying. And then they said, "Oh, no, now I see what you're talking about. I need to send this up and we'll respond by email." And I've got no support. I mean, I have to create a ticket now with the number I wrote down from the chat. So I've always, found the people that I've chatted with on level 1, they've always been very good. And then they send it up the line, I at least get a response. So this hasn't been very good. That's why I was asking.
We haven't, as far as I know, we haven't changed our subscription or anything like that. But I have to wonder if, because of the pandemic and all of the colleges and high schools for that matter going online on short notice, I have to wonder if maybe Canvas's support team is just not up to the amount of traffic they're getting right now.
Well, and when I went into the chat, I'll be number 37 in line, number 45 in line. I mean, I know they're overloaded.
Yeah. Huh, interesting. That's something
good to know.
Yeah, that is good to know. I'll report that to Jerry, because like I said, I don't think we've changed our level of service, but he may not be aware that the support is just not getting back to you in a timely fashion like they used to. And I don't know if that's something we can fix or not, but we can at least ask.
Well, I can't, usually, when a person says we'll follow up an email, then I see, I start getting those emails. I've got nothing. So I don't know if this tech didn't create it or, and as I said, this was Saturday.
Okay.
So, I kept a record, a chat transcript, and I'll go in and create a ticket or whatever with that information. But that's just really unusual.
Yeah, that I have usually heard good things about the Canvas support. Again, this is just my guess, and my gut instinct says, I wonder if either they have so much demand for support right now that they're overwhelmed, or because of that, they've hired on a bunch of new support staff that maybe is not quite as fast as their more seasoned employees. Or for that matter, they might even be contracting with the third-party support vendors, for all I know.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for letting us know. We'll definitely pass it along and do some looking around to see what's going on.
And if you discover anything that works in groups, let me know, because I do group projects in all my courses, and I've done them for years. I mean, I started when Google Docs was in beta. That's why I say that, I'm old.
I know what you're doing.
And so to have them just be so difficult. And I already write elaborate instructions. Mm-hmm. And when they go into groups, I try different things. So in one class, I have all these warnings, don't do this here, don't do that here, don't do this. And then another class, I won't have all those warnings because I think maybe that's overwhelming them. And then that's the very class that created all this extra stuff. So it's like, well, that didn't work.
Okay, we'll have to do some research and get back to you. No promises on fixing.
No, as I said, over the years, I've talked to Canvas. Yeah. And it seems like, and obviously I don't understand the code behind it, that it's just a fundamental design flaw in how they set up groups. That they're outside of course shells, and so I'm assuming any kind of fix is a huge issue.
Right. Well, and that's something else that I've noticed with Canvas is they have become so popular in the last few years that now suddenly they're trying to be all things to all people. They're trying to find solutions to all kinds of different kinds of schools, and for-profit training also uses Canvas as a training tool. So that's kind of been my perception, is they are trying to do so many things that some of their older tools that probably need a little bit more immediate attention has kind of fallen on the back burner a little bit. And I hope that's not a forever thing. I hope that they'll go back and revamp some of those old tools, including groups, but I don't know.
Do you find, I mean, I issue the standard warning, you know, on my homepage. It's like, well, you know, you can check Canvas, you know, from your phone to see what's going on, use the app, but you got to use a PC in the browser to do any work.
Yeah.
And you know, I have students once again in groups where, you know, they want to have a quick, you know, post a quick message to their group, and they're doing it from a phone. And the message gets posted, but they can't see it. And they're, you know, and that, you know, from what I see where they're talking to each other, it's like, oh, you have to keep refreshing on your phone. You have to keep doing this. You have to keep doing that. And it just, you know, so I can't remember somebody else. I mean, they know not to take quizzes on their phone, but I mean, I consistently run into these app problems where it's like, don't offer an app that doesn't work.
Right. I mean, my perception is the app is really useful as a check-in tool, you know, to check to make sure you're not missing any announcements, to check your own, as a student, to check your grade and to check your due dates. But students, yeah, you're right. Students shouldn't be using their cell phones to submit work of any kind. But unfortunately they do, because that's the device that is most readily available to them. I mean, most of them are going to have a laptop or a desktop at home, but some of our students don't.
Yeah.
And especially this spring quarter, you know, we had students that were signed up for face-to-face classes. They weren't expecting to do work online. And then suddenly we have to make that pivot. And then we have students that are scrambling to, you know, find a laptop, to find reliable internet access. You know, students doing their coursework from their car in the SCC parking lot because that's the only Wi-Fi they have access to, you know. So
Yeah.
we know we have students that have that technology access challenge. And I think you're right to warn them, you know, don't use your cell phone to do your graded assignments. Get on a laptop, get on a desktop computer and do the work there. But, you know, of course, you're always going to have students that try to do it on here with very
well, and it obviously was just so frustrating for the student because she was posting and replying to group members, and then she thought they were disappearing, or you know, or not being saved, and you know, and so she was very concerned. She contacted me, and of course, you know, it's like I see them, but that doesn't help you if you can't see them. But
right.
yeah, so it just causes some stress that they don't need.
Yep. I agree.
Does that apply to Chromebooks as well? Chromebooks, they're accessing through a regular Chrome browser. It's just Responsiveness that's the issue with Chromebooks. Is that right?
Generally, yes. For just accessing Canvas, doing things like email and discussions and quizzes and that sort of thing, a Chromebook will be just fine for Canvas. The problem that students with Chromebooks run into is all a Chromebook is just a web browser, basically. It's basically just a box that runs the Chrome web browser and nothing else. So if they use something like Google Docs or Office 365, where they are accessing, you know, a word processor through their web browser, yeah, it kind of works. But there's never a guarantee of when they're going to hit a roadblock where suddenly what they're doing just isn't going to work just through Chrome, and they need to have a real computer, quote unquote, to get the work done. So I mean, I wish I could tell students don't rely on a Chromebook, but the problem is Chromebooks are really cheap. You go to Walmart, you go to Target, you look in the electronics section, the cheapest laptops available are going to be Chromebooks. So for students with limited budgets, that's what they're going to gravitate towards.
And do we know, because I don't have high school age kids, and and the running start enrollment has gone way up. So I have a couple US history classes where the majority of the class is running start. Mm-hmm. Are they getting Chromebooks from their high schools? Is that common in Spokane?
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. I've got an 8-year-old in the Spokane school district, a 9-year-old now, who just had a birthday. and he's using a school issued Chromebook. And for his class, they do everything in Google Classroom. So it's all integrated through Chrome and through the Chromebook and everything. So unfortunately, that is what a lot of our students, especially those Running Start students, it's what they're used to. It's what they were taught to use in high school. And now we're putting them into Canvas and we're saying, no, don't do that anymore. So it's, you know, it's a challenge. I don't know what the answer is other than just awareness and communication with those students. So, I mean, I will say that when I was a student taking grad classes, I had a desktop computer and I had a Chromebook just because it was cheap and it was easy to pack around. And I could do most of my work on the Chromebook. And when I hit those roadblocks, you know, it was kind of on me as the student to figure out how to deal with that. And sometimes it was something I could do on the Chromebook, and sometimes I had to go back home and get on the desktop and do it there. But I don't know. I don't think anybody has the answer to that right now. That's something that schools all across the country and all across the world are dealing with right now, is how do you deal with those students that have that kind of technology access issue?
Well, I don't use Responsiveness, so I hadn't really worried about students using Chromebooks in my classes, but it might be, I do a, you know, kind of intro getting to know you survey, and I ask them, you know, how are you accessing the class and whether you use any assistive technology and that kind of stuff. And it might be worthwhile to kind of single out Chromebook as a response on one of those to see how many students.
That would be really interesting. You might be really surprised at what you get back. And again, I'll say that depending on the kind of work you're having students do, Chromebook is probably fine. If you are having them do discussions, online discussions, and take quizzes and write papers with a word processor, they can do all that with a Chromebook. They can do that with Google Docs and Google Drive, and it's not hard to get that kind of work done. It's just that you never quite know when you're going to kind of reach the limits of what you can do with a Chromebook.
Yeah, and I'll have to rely on them to tell me because I don't have a Chromebook. So yeah.
Well, and you know, it might not, if this is something you're worried about and it's a problem you've had in the past, probably not a bad idea to say in, you know, your first week course announcement or in your syllabus or in your introduction video, if you rely on a Chromebook as your primary device, you need to be aware that most things will work, but some things might not. And if you hit that roadblock, you need to let me, your instructor, know right away so that we can work out a solution. Because I think that's, you know, that's probably the best answer, is just that students are aware of the limitations and that you are aware of the limitations and that they get a hold of you as soon as they have a problem. And if they don't get a hold of you, then, you know, then we never hear from them and then they just disappear, right?
Yeah, and I, you know, this is arcane, and I wish I didn't have to do this, but I'm in Pullman, and there's a class that we offer every quarter, and of course now it's online, so Spokane students take it, but it's called History 105, Historical Roots of Contemporary Issues, and it's a big deal here because every WSU student is required to take it. And when we created it, it was specifically, we created it to transfer directly to WSU. So I'm constantly going to WSU people. It's like, okay, what are they? Because of course, a quarter to semester system. I mean, there are things we deal with, but they have to use, and I'm a historian and I use it, but I never would ask students to use it. Chicago Notes and Bibliography Citation Style, which means, and yet, to my knowledge, you still can't do them in Google Docs.
I don't know much about Chicago, but in my master's program, we had to do APA, and that was a challenge in Google Docs.
Even APA?
What's that?
Oh, I'm surprised that an in-text citation style like that would be an issue. Why was that an issue in Google Docs?
The main issue was Google Docs really does not want you to do the reverse indent, where the first line of citation is not indented. And then
that's right. Yeah, I always said copy and paste from Word into Google Docs to get it to work.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I had to do too. Anytime I had a required citation page, I had to do it in Word. Rather,
Yeah.
I did most of my work in Google Docs just because it was easier for me. But when it came to styling the citations, I had to do it in Word. And
Interesting. Yeah, I'd forgotten about the hanging indents. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it was great to chat. Like I said, I don't know if we'll have any easy answers to your problems, but we'll look into them.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope to attend next week's session as well.
Great, see you then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
See
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Caleb.
Yeah, so I'm going to end our YouTube stream, and we will do this again next time.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.